I like stealth games, particularly as of recently, as I've grown my library to include things such as Splinter Cell, Metal Gear, Hitman, and Dishonored. But there's one game that really got me into this whole cycle, and that is today's review. Good evening, I'm MrChowderClam of Autem Technica, and this is our review of Deus Ex Human Revolution. Human Revolution follows the story of Jensen, the head of security for the fictional Sarif Industries. At the beginning of the game, his girlfriend, as well as a number of people at the Sarif Industries, are killed during an attack, except he is saved through augmentation. Following this is a story of vengeance that quickly develops into a plot filled with conspiracy that is quite engaging until the last quarter of the game, because it sucks after that. Starting off during the about last quarter of the game, the newly revealed villain determines that in order to show humanity exactly how bad humans that are augmented are, he was going to effectively turn them all into zombies.
Mr. Sarif here has asked me to show the world how human enhancement technology can change it. After careful deliberation, I've decided I must do exactly that. Forgive me.
No, really? That happened? I laughed. It's bizarre because other than that last quarter of the game, the story is quite competent. No, it's not perhaps to the level of the original, but yeah, no, not bad. The characters of Human Revolution are very hit or miss. The main characters such as Jensen, Pritchard, and the villain I can't mention because of spoilers aren't too bad. Jensen, for instance, is very interesting in that he is white male with many stubble. It's like a real groundbreaker in this whole gaming thing. In all seriousness though, Jensen isn't a bad character, but he's also an RPG character, and henceforth he has the flaws that a lot of RPG characters have, and that is, he's not given much story in the game. You have to fill that in yourself by making decisions. That said, he is given enough background story through environmental and emails and stuff that it sort of helps make him not seem hollow, if that makes sense. Which I've decided it does. On the other hand, his ex-girlfriend, Megan, is literally the worst character in the game. Not because she's a necessarily bad character, although for spoiler reasons I can't explain, she kind of is, but also she is a plot MacGuffin, which if you don't know is basically just a character who has something occur to them to move the story forwards. In this case, she dies and Adam has to get vengeance against the people who killed her. Otherwise, the other characters really don't have major issues I can complain about, or at least think of, so that's a plus. I have to give credit where credit is due. Square Enix has done a lot to flesh out the world in Human Revolution. There is what I would call the right amount of people everywhere. There is rubbish on tables, there is paperwork on desks. It's really nice. Attention to detail. As for the world from a gameplay point of view, you have two main types of levels. You have these more closed off office and plant style levels, but you also have these much wider open hub worlds, like a lot of games have. These are based on cities, very similar to the original game actually. They're large, somewhat open world, and typically have a lot of rooms and buildings you can enter without loading screens. However, some of the larger buildings, for instance the Hive during Hengsha, do have loading screens when you enter them, which makes sense I suppose. Unfortunately, there is only two of these worlds, Hengsha and Detroit, and you don't really get to do a lot of the more interesting missions in them. They are literally hub worlds to get you from one smaller mission to another smaller mission, with a few additional objectives in between. That said, the less open style levels are still pretty good. As I mentioned before, they are set inside of offices and manufacturing plants, and they aren't, too bad. They're the levels where you get to play a lot more stealth. and they're also designed for a nice amount of useful and logical ways of getting around, for instance vents and ladders and stuff to sneak through. That said, that's only sometimes. Sometimes these levels don't give you that, especially during the last quarter of the game, oddly enough, where they start to fail at giving you stealth options, I've noticed, which is a really big issue, because otherwise they would be some of my favorite level design of a video game so far. Human Revolution is an action stealth RPG, and as such, the gameplay is a combination of three genres. RPG-wise, you have a typical RPG style inventory, which gives you two main ways of organization: automated or inventory Tetris, if you're a fan of the older game, which lets you manually put all your things in your inventory, but if you don't have the correct amount of space available, even if you have enough space, it won't pick up an item, if that makes sense. It also has an RPG style upgrade system where you can upgrade on with new augmentations that make him jump higher, punch better, or as for the other sort of action stealth gameplay, you have a choice between the two, and you also have a choice between pacifist and guns blazing. Both are rather nice, I'll admit. I don't play many FPS games, as such I don't have much benchmarks for what a good gunplay is, but I do feel that Human Revolution's gunplay is pretty damn good. That said, if you aren't much of a Ghost player, there is an annoyingly overpowered takedown system. You sneak up on people, up to 2, depending on if you got the upgrade or not, press a button and you literally take them out next to silently. Oh, and while I'm ranting, there's no lean, which is stupid. Instead, the game has a cover system to look around corners, which, no, I want my lean. Give me my QE lean. All games need lean. Stealth-wise, as I mentioned, there is generally enough ways to stealth through the game. However, in the more later levels, it becomes a lot more difficult. Not impossible, mind you. There are ways. It's just very, very difficult and irritating. So it's like, between that and the much more difficult enemies, it's a very difficult last quarter of the game. Human Revolution looks good. It has a decently realistic look, with highly stylized black and gold aesthetic, particularly in the cutscenes. I don't have any real issues with the appearance, and I also found that it ran pretty well on my old graphics card at GT 640, which, if you know anything about graphics cards, is not a very amazing graphics card. I do, however, have some issues with the cutscenes. They look very compressed with artifacts all over them, which is a shame because otherwise they look very good. But yeah, the game looks good. No real massive complaints here. I mean, it's no Witcher 2, but it's not bad. Character design in the game is also quite nice. As mentioned, the designers went for a more realistic look. The clothing everyone wears is really awesome. Most of the pro-org characters have a really interesting Renaissance design to them, which looks pretty awesome in my mind. The anti-org characters have a more typically conventional clothing, albeit futuristic-y, if that makes sense. But they still look good in their own right. Oh, and Adam's coat is amazing. It has made me look and sit and stare closely at Master Brand's website more than a few times. The music of this game is some of my favorite from a very long time. It's a typically dark, cinematic sounding electronica, and it fits the scenes of the game perfectly. So yes, I give praise to Michael McCann for being able to make a soundtrack that lives up to the original Deus Ex. Not a small feat in my mind. Eidos also sells an album of the music. However, like a lot of video game music albums, it has the big disadvantage of not containing all of the songs. Only 25 select songs have been remastered for it. Which isn't a bad thing, necessarily. I understand why they wouldn't do that. 25 is a very large amount for a soundtrack, or a CD anyway. But it does mean I miss out on some of the not necessarily better, but nice music. Sound design is also generally pretty good, with high quality sound effects similar to the original game, and much nicer voice acting. And that said, there is still some issues I found with non-American characters having very exaggerated accents, although it is still better than the original game in that regard. So, Human Revolution is a very good game that does something a bit different when compared to a lot of the other action RPGs that are out on the market today. If you're a fan of stealth and RPGs, as well as the original game, I'd give it a recommendation to buy it. The fantastic music, the mostly good story and characters outweigh the relatively minor complaints in my mind. That said, if you aren't much of a fan of RPG or stealth games, but you still like action and FPS games, I'd pick it up on sale or whatever. It's still a pretty damn good game. And should you want to pick it up, Deus Ex Human Revolution is available on the PC, the PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360, and its newer Director's Cut edition is available on all three of the previously mentioned platforms, as well as the Macintosh, the Wii U. That's all. And I do recommend picking up Director's Cut if you can. It includes all the DLC, which is nice. It includes the rather nice Missing Link, which is a very good expansion to the game. It's probably one of my favorite parts. It also improves the lighting engine, which gives it a more realistic look and removes all of the yellow background from the game, keeping it more stylized in the cutscenes. Anyway, once again, I've been MrChowderClam with Autem Technica. Good evening.